Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let the record reflect that all directors are present. Approval of the agenda. Mr. Bartz, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to propose that we delete item 6A, or I'm sorry, 6E from the agenda tonight, and that was approving a site lease and lease agreement.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with changes?
I motion.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Public comment. Ms. Sevi, are there any members of the public here for public comment?
There are no members of the public in person or on Zoom for public comment.
All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to community reports. Let's start with Sheriff.
Good evening and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
We will start with the Pinion Hills area. I'm going to go over November because we weren't here last month, so we're going to go ahead and go over November stats. We had 191 calls for service. Out of the 191 calls, we had 37 reports that were generated and a total of 3 arrests. Out of the calls that were generated for us, the top one was audible alarms, and then our second call volume was theft of credit card information. So people, I can't believe that one came up, but around the holiday, so people were getting their identities and money stolen. Then it was well checks, and then disturbing the peace, and then follow-ups. So for the month of December, it was up a little bit. We have 239 calls for service, 34 reports, and 5 arrests. For the Phelan area, we had, for the month of November, were 588 calls for service, 92 reports, and 13 arrests. For December, it went up a bit at 650 calls for service, and the total reports were about the same, 93, and then we had 13 arrests, were pretty much the same for November. And out of those, audible alarms, follow-ups, well checks, and theft of credit cards and whatnot were again prevalent in this area, and I think that just strongly has to correlate with the time of year and people finding easy targets, unfortunately. That's it. Any questions? Good?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on with Dr. Holman.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I greatly appreciate our leadership right over here for Sheriff's Department. I know we all do, so thank you for your service there. Happy New Year to our directors and administrators. Gosh, unlucky for all of you, I was here not too long ago. I think it was just a little over 2 weeks ago. So it was just prior to the winter break. We are getting back to school. I know that students are just thrilled to be doing so. I know all the employees are for sure. And that is on January 9th. School resumes. So please get the word out that all our kids will come back to school on Monday, did I say June? January 9th. On January 6th, so Friday, all the teachers come back. They'll come back for training. We try to make certain that we are doing all that we can to provide for the best teaching environment for all of our kids. And one of the ways that we do that is with this commitment to engagement, trying to engage our kids better. We've got a 6-part series called Kagan Structures. So all of our teachers will go through that, all about 400 teachers on Friday, January 6th, with again the 9th being the first day for students. You all do know about our life skills effort, where we are endeavoring to focus on those skills that kids need to be successful, not just in the educational realm, but in life in general. We started out back in September, committed to self-awareness. In October, it was self-management. In November, we committed to the notion of responsible decision-making. Now in January, we're going to be committed to goal setting, so that'll be our focus in January, with relationship management in February, and then in March, we will end that core competency effort that we have around those life skills with social awareness. Now, here we are getting ready for the second half of the year, and I think as we look forward to 2023, I'll just share with you areas of focus for us beyond what we normally do, and that is trying to provide a world-class education for all kids. We'll be finalizing our mission and vision, as well as a graduate profile in Snowline. And a graduate profile, just real quickly, will be what we want all kids, when they walk across the stage at all of our high schools, what each and every child will be able to do. What will those profiles look like? We're going to be developing that. Our board has us revising our cell phone policy for students, as well as looking into school start times. You might remember I've been here before talking about that waiver that we have, where we did not have to move our high schools to 8:30 or later for a start time, and middle schools 8 o'clock because of the rural nature. But our school board wants us to survey all of the public here to find out what people want to do. We have the flexibility to move our times, so we'll be doing that in the coming months and finding out what the community will tell us to do in that regards. Also, school climate and wellness survey, we continue to do that. The Superintendent's Advisory Council, I want you to know that's something a real favorite of mine, where I get together kids in 2 different times in the second semester to find out what are their needs so that they help us shape our district plan, which everyone will be part of. And then we'll be expanding our dual enrollment. Just I haven't talked too much about that, but that's an opportunity for our kids to get college credit while they get high school credit. We've got about 100 kids doing that right now. We're continuing to expand that with our partnership with Victor Valley College. That's a quick overview of 2023. So President Kujava, thank you for the time. Always willing to answer any questions.
Any questions? No?
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
so much for the
much.
support. Thank you. And again, Happy New Year, Tamara.
You too.
Thanks.
All right, and then I see online that we have Sam Shoop. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are all of you?
Good.
Good to hear. I don't really have much of an update for everybody. We're just getting back into things here after the holiday. The supervisor today attended his usual transportation authority meeting down the hill. The next board meeting is on this upcoming Tuesday the 10th. Probably the main thing that happened is over the break or over the holiday time. Supervisor Jesse Armendariz was sworn in. I have to get used to calling him supervisor now. So we have our new board shaping up, and we'll have the first meeting with that board, like I said, on Tuesday. Where we'll have the new makeup with chair and vice chair nominations and all of that happening. So I'll fill you in on how that turns out at the next meeting at 10. But beyond that, we're just getting back into the gear of things and getting going here in the new year. And as always, I'll be here if anyone has any questions, or they can reach out to us afterwards.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we will move on to agenda item number 3, consent items. Does anyone have any items they would like to pull? Okay. If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent items, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. No matters removed from consent. No presentations and appointments. We move on to 6A, second reading of ordinance 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, logo, and insignia. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you, Madam President. This ordinance was introduced and discussed at the board meeting on November 16th, 2022. The first reading was waived by the board on December 14th, 2022. In order to adopt an ordinance, a legal process must be followed, which includes a first reading, second reading, a public hearing, along with noticing and publishing requirements. And the staff's recommendation is for the board to waive the second reading of ordinance 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move a motion to waive the second reading of the ordinance 2023-01.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so moving on to 6B, public hearing on ordinance 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia. All right, I declare the public hearing on ordinance number 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia, now open at 6:11 p.m. May we have the secretary's report, please?
Yes, at this time, I'd like to report the district received 0 written protests, objections, or comments relating to ordinance number 2023-01.
All right, thank you very much. May we please have the attorney's report, Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This ordinance was introduced and discussed at the board meeting on November 16th, 2022. The first reading was waived by the board on December 14th, 2022. The second reading was waived earlier this evening. Notice of public hearing was posted in the district office on December 14th, 2022, and on the district website on December 22nd, 22. Notice of public hearing was published in the Daily Press on December 21 and 29 of 2022. A summary of the ordinance and notice of public hearing was also published in the Mountaineer Progress on December 29th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, the district seal, district logo, and district insignia are personal property of the district, and the district can control their use as well as prevent other parties from unauthorized use. Misuse or unauthorized use of the district's official seal, district logo, and other district insignia can be confusing or misrepresentation that a statement, event, or organization is supported or endorsed by the district. Although a person may be criminally prosecuted for their improper use of the district's official seal, if it is used in the context of campaign literature or mass mailings, there are no other statutory prohibitions on the use of the district's official seal or district logo. Therefore, staff is recommending adoption of regulations governing the use of the official district seal, district logo, and other insignia as a preventative measure to address potential fraud, deception, and misuse. The proposed ordinance establishes and authorizes use for the district seal, district's logo, and other insignia, and will empower the district's general manager to enforce the ordinance regarding the use of the district seal, district logo, and other insignia by district staff. The proposed ordinance will also establish civil fines of up to $500 and a misdemeanor offense for malicious or commercial uses which are inconsistent with the public good. Staff is recommending adoption of regulations governing the use of the official district seal, district logo, and other insignia as a preventative measure to address potential fraud, deception, and misuse.
Thank you, Mr. Bartz. At this time, we will open the public hearing up for public comment. Any person may address the board on the ordinance. When you comment, please state your full name for the record. You will have 5 minutes to comment. Responses to comments and questions will be given by staff after everyone has had a chance to comment.
Are there any members of the public in person that would like to provide public comment? Okay, there are none. And I do not show anybody on Zoom at this time.
All right, thank you very much. With that, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion.
I'll second.
All right, hearing first and second. The hearing will close at 6:15 p.m. Thank you. get to say this one more time. 6C. Discussion and possible adoption of ordinance number 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia. Mr. Bartz.
Yes. Staff's recommendation is for the board to adopt ordinance 2023-01, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? No? All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of the motion to adopt resolution ordinance 2023-01, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. All right. 6D, discussion and possible action regarding 2023-2024 budget process schedule. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you. Ms. Lawrence is going to take this item.
Yes, each year staff completes a schedule for the budget process timeline. This timeline, along with a summary of the budget process, is published on the district's website, and a press release is issued in order to encourage public participation. Staff is recommending that the board review the attached draft timeline and determine if any modifications are necessary. Otherwise, the board could approve it.
All right. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or changes? No? Over here?
Well, just as long as the staff is, staff can complete all the tasks.
Yeah, and this is a guideline. We'll do our best to meet those timelines, and I think staff has done a great job in the past doing that. It is flexible if need be. If we need additional meetings in between, but this should be attainable.
Okay. All right. So if there are no other questions, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right. I will second.
Good.
All right. I got a lot to do over here. All in favor of the motion to accept the budget process schedule, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, so we are jumping to 6F. Discussion and possible action regarding participation in the California Class Investment Pool. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you. I am turning this window over to Ms. Lorenz too.
Okay, staff has met with California Class to review the investment program which they offer. It's very similar to LAIF, where most of the district's funds had previously been invested. Currently, California Class has an opportunity that is paying a higher interest rate than our savings account with DCB and Flagstar. And staff is recommending that the board authorize the district to open an account with Class and pursue investments through their programs.
All right, any questions? Over here? No questions? Guys are easy.
No, we have a chance to make a little interest on our money.
All right. Yeah, that's a big increase, so that's good.
Gonna pay for the loan. Almost.
Well, it certainly helps.
Certainly help. All right. Okay, if no other questions or comments, do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. All right, moving on to 6G, discussion and possible action regarding cost of living adjustment for employees. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you, Madam President. The cost of living in the high desert has continued to increase extraordinarily over the past 2 years. This is according to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for this area. Staff is predicting that this number could continue to rise based on the current trend. Because the district is 6 months behind in applying COLA to wages, the current influx is particularly impactful to staff. Per district policy and as part of the budget process, the board implements an annual COLA increase July 1st based on the CPI measurement in January compared to the previous year. Since January 2022, the cost of living has increased 5.9%. With the status of the current economy and the constant increase in the cost of living, the projected COLA increase for the coming year could be 6.4%. Staff recommends implementing a 4% COLA increase effective January 1st, 2023 to lessen the impact of the current cost of inflation. This will help alleviate the consequences to staff and their families and will also help in retaining staff. Any remaining COLA using the January 22 to January 23 periods will be applied effective July 1st, 2023 as per policy. The fiscal impact, the COLA cost of 4% is $59,500, and the staff's recommendation is for the board to implement a cost of living increase of 4% to employees' wages effective January 1st, 2023.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Yeah. Additionally, that's for the employee's salary, but does that include, is that the benefited rate? So does that go towards their retirement as well? Because there'll be additional costs if they get a cost of living raise that goes towards retirement, correct?
Yes, and that is calculated into the amount.
All right. And then this was, we have money in the budget for this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mark?
Yeah, I pushed doing it last year, and I don't have a problem this year. I just am curious about moving forward at this point. Is every time inflation kicks up or not, or is this going to be something that the staff brings back regularly to the board? And if so, maybe we're going to have to look at the budget process and build this in or something?
Yes, absolutely, and we will be looking at it during the budget process. If this is brought to staff's attention by board members, this most certainly would be brought to the board at this time of year. But we will be looking at it in the budget process for next year also.
Because, I mean, we had inflation of 0 to 1 or 2 for years and years and years, and now this may be going on for some time. So I think we should discuss, but looking at in the budget process, this going forward. That's all.
Okay.
All right. All good? Okay. So with no other questions or comments,
You want a motion?
I will motion to approve this item.
Gosh, I will second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're trying to stay awake here. All right, so all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, the motion passes. 6G, review of ordinance number 2022-01, establishing guidelines for the conduct of district public meetings and activities. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you, Madam President. The district's sunshine ordinance, sounds so nice, is reviewed annually to determine its effectiveness and the necessity for its continued operation. During the review, the board will determine if any revisions are desired or necessary. The last update to this policy took place on January 18th, 2022, when modifications concerning meetings held via teleconference were added. Ordinance number 22-01 is attached for board review. Should any modifications be required or desired by the board, the ordinance with proposed modifications will be brought back to the board for review and possible approval. And I'm going to open this up to the board for comments. Then I would have some comments when we get to the end.
Questions, comments? No? No?
No, I've looked at this many times.
All right. So, Mr. Bartz?
Okay, staff has been discussing the date and times of the board meetings that are held. We would like to propose that they move, instead of the first and third Wednesdays of the month, potentially moving the meetings to the second and fourth meetings of the month. That would do a couple of things. That one of the main things would be gathering information at the end of the month to provide the prior month activities in the board package at the first meeting of the month. Otherwise, sometimes it gets pushed back weeks or potentially a month, and you're getting information that's quite dated. And the only other suggestion that staff would propose would be to consider moving the board meetings to 5 o'clock in the evening, which would also cut down on staff time.
Okay. Thoughts?
Madam President, if I may?
Yes, of course.
A couple things. Part of what the board typically does as in connection with its sunshine ordinance review is consider some of the statutory changes that may or may not have occurred during the prior year to the Brown Act. And with a couple new board members on board, I think it's important to note the significance of the sunshine ordinance is that it reflects the board and the district's commitment to transparency and to ensure that its operations and the board's decision-making process is conducted openly and with the public participation and involvement over and above what's required under the Brown Act. But also, you know, the Brown Act sets really the floor, and it reflects the board's intention to do more than actually what's required under the Brown Act. And part of that is setting your regular meetings. That staff's timing on this is appropriate to bring it to the board for consideration. The sunshine ordinance does identify when your board meeting schedule is. Just for the board's information, I do have another board meeting on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock in Whittier. So that would create a problem for me for that one, but other than that, it's not a problem, and not that should dictate what is being recommended by staff. That's completely up to the board, but that's just something that the board should be aware of for me. With respect to whether or not there have been any statutory changes that the board may have interest in with respect to the Brown Act, Ms. Sevi gave a very good presentation a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, regarding AB 2449 and what that means for local agencies moving forward, especially beginning March 1. This board doesn't, even though you have already adopted your AB 361 resolution, which recertified the ability for board members to participate remotely, more often than not, the board members on this board haven't exercised that right, but have attended in person. Beginning March 1, the ability to attend remotely under AB 361 will expire. The governor has determined that the statewide state of emergency related to the pandemic will be lifted on February 28th. So the board will need to adjust accordingly. The AB 361 resolution that you adopted earlier this meeting, the recertification will probably be brought back next month, and that'll be the last time. And then board members who want to attend remotely will either have to do under the old Brown Act style, which is to identify that location, that remote location on the agenda, post that agenda at that location, and allow the public to attend from that location and to participate from that location. And so just for those board members that might remember 3 years ago how remote attendance was done, we'll be required to go back to that. Or use AB 2449, which I won't go into all over again, but that does provide a little more flexibility for board members that want to attend remotely. I'm not recommending any changes to your sunshine ordinance related to that, because I think the board did a good job of covering that particular issue in the sunshine ordinance. But just a heads up that the way we're doing it now will expire March 1. couple other things that the board should be aware of, changes to the Brown Act. Assembly Bill 2647 sets forth more requirements about what obligations the district has when presenting the board with backup materials, backup agenda materials after the agenda was posted. They are required to be made available to the public at the same time that they are made available to the board. So district staff would need to post that on the website, as well as have those documents available at the district office at the same time that they're provided to the board. And then the other thing, just real quickly, one other bill is Senate Bill 1100. That bill deals with what the requirements are for specifically board president if you have a member of the public that is being disruptive during the meeting. You have the ability to remove a disruptive individual from the meeting. You're required to first give a warning that their disruptive behavior may result in their being asked to leave. And if they don't leave, then you can have them removed. That warning requirement does not apply if the disruptive individual there's a true threat that he or she may do harm during the meeting. So those changes were made part of the Brown Act. I don't know if any of those would trigger the need for the board to modify your sunshine ordinance. That's something for the board to make that call. But those were three areas that I would like the board to be aware of, the modifications that were made this last legislative year in 2022 related to the Brown Act.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Comments? Questions?
If there were any changes that the board wanted to make, those would be brought back to the next meeting.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be voted on tonight.
So your requests, the staff's requests wouldn't be voted on?
It would not be voted on tonight. But we did not check with the attorney on his schedule prior to looking at this. So there may be a conflict. I'm not sure how we would work around that.
Yeah, if he cannot attend one of the meetings. How does that?
Good question. I'll take that one, Steve. Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She
No.
didn't have.
She didn't have her microphone,
Oh,
and she
sorry.
asked
My
how
bad.
that would affect the district. Steve, I'm going to turn that over to you, but I have been at agencies where the attorney was not at every meeting. So that, I'm not sure the legalities of that, but I have done that quite often in the past over the years. So it's, that's, I think, up to the discretion of the board on timing for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And, one of and there is no legal requirement that your attorney be at every meeting. The only time you are required to have legal counsel there is if you're going into closed session for conference with legal counsel. And so that's usually related to litigation, either existing or anticipated. So you would need counsel there for that, but there isn't a legal requirement that you have counsel attend any or all of your meetings. I do have some other clients where there is a conflict. In fact, I have another client that has a conflict that meets on the third Wednesday of the month, and I always, but they don't need me. They haven't attended that meeting as often. And so if they need me for their meetings, I usually ask them to reschedule so that I can continue to attend yours. So I do give priority to your district with respect to that one. With respect to the meeting, but the district that has their meetings on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 6, in Whittier, they specifically set that because they changed their schedule to accommodate me because of my other commitments. So that would be a more difficult one for me to change, and they do require me to be there at all of their meetings, but that's something that we could, I'd be glad to work with. We have other attorneys in the firm as well, and so that could be something that could be coordinated with other counsel here at the office.
Okay.
So I don't have an issue with the 5, but can you give me expand a little bit on why you want to move to the second and fourth Wednesdays instead of the first and third?
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Sevi because she's the one who's preparing and gathering a lot of the information from staff members that go into the board packets. So Kim, if you want to chime in on that one.
My pleasure. So as you're aware, we collect a lot of statistical data from the state, from the county, and from our hauler, as well as put together financial reports. And so we have to wait for certain month-end processes to be completed by all of these various entities before we can put together our reports for the board, including some of our finance reports and our engineering reports. And so what happens is sometimes we'll end up about, and you've noticed it, we'll be a month behind on certain managers' reports and some statistical data for committees, just because the first comes very fast. So our first meeting of the month right now is on the 4th, so of course we don't have any month-end data for December. And so in the event we cancel a meeting or something gets changed, we just get behind. And so it would just be tidier as far as our reporting goes if it's on the second week of the month rather than the first. Just a preference, just to keep the process a little bit more orderly and not fall behind.
I'm just not sure about the 5 o'clock. I still think it needs to give people time to get up here. 5:30, I'll go with 5:30. Even though we don't have a million people here, but you still have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And then a suggestion for Mr. Kennedy's conflict is just preload the second week meeting, so the first meeting of the month now, with any items that would require legal counsel to be here. And of course, we also have it in our, I can't remember which policy, that we will, only have the number of meetings that we require. And so perhaps this might be the impetus to move to monthly meetings whenever it's appropriate, especially in the summertime and during the holidays. And then, of course, as he said, we can always schedule special meetings where legal counsel is needed, such as if negotiating a contract or anything like that.
So this is a budget-saving move.
This is a great budget-saving move.
Yeah, all around. Except for that half hour.
Those are, I apologize, those are excellent points. And I think one of the benefits that we all have learned from the remote access in your district does it probably the best of any of the districts that I represent, as far as how you handle your remote access and remote capabilities. And so, and I think there has been quite a bit of cost savings, at least for me not having to travel. I think I've only traveled to your office this last year just 2 or 3 times. And as much as I miss Mr. Cardenas, I think it has resulted in savings, and it provides more flexibility for me for those meetings where maybe you would need me for part of say your second meeting of the month. I could work out an arrangement with my other client where that would be remote, and so it would be toggling back and forth, but that's something that could be done.
Yeah, and so in those instances, so if it's on the 4th week of the month, we could preload the agenda with Mr. Kennedy related items earlier in the evening to accommodate his schedule. The other, I just lost my train of thought. I apologize. Oh, yes, and I did want to point out, although the public participation and board remote option goes away, our staff and council are still allowed to remote into board meetings. And so Mr. Kennedy is able to continue to remote in. We just won't have a public access or board access option, with the exception of if we want to employ one of the Brown Act methods for teleconferencing when you guys are traveling.
Mr. Kennedy, what time are your meetings on that Thursday?
On the Thursday?
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the second meeting of the month on Wednesday, where you have a conflict.
On the 4th.
It'd be the
Well,
4th.
Yeah, so on Wednesdays, I have meetings at 6 o'clock with you, with Phelan at 6 on the 1st and 3rd. I also have a meeting on Wednesday mornings at 8 on the 1st and 3rd in Claremont. Then the 4th Wednesday of the month is also at 6, and that's Whittier. But they have remote ability, and I've attended more often than not remotely for those meetings. So, but it's all of them are at 6. All the evening ones are at 6.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, moving that one at 5 certainly.
It would, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that would help solve most of that problem.
Yeah, I would think it would be confusing if we had the first meeting of the month at 5:30 and the second meeting of the month at 5. I
Yeah.
think I think we should keep them at the same time if the board chooses to make a change.
So, Mr. Kennedy, you don't have any meetings on the second Wednesday of the month? At 6?
I do not
Okay.
have any meetings.
So that could be the Mr. Kennedy meeting.
Yeah, that's our legal meeting.
Yeah.
How lucky are you guys?
So lucky. I don't have a problem moving it to 5 o'clock. You know, I don't think we're gonna get any public,
I'm okay with
blowback
5
on
too.
that.
5's fine with me.
So we can talk about it. We're gonna put it on the agenda next time anyway, right?
Yeah, so what'll happen is we'll bring back a red line version of this ordinance for the board to review and possibly approve at the next meeting. And so at that time, it can be discussed further.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so we will move on to 6I, discussion and possible action regarding nominations for the Board of Directors for the Association of San Bernardino County Special Districts Board. Mr. Barnes?
Thank you. I had already skipped on to the next item. I went a little bit fast there. The ASB-CSD's Board of Directors election will be held at a membership meeting in February of 2023. There are 3 positions open for election. In order to nominate a director for a vacant position, ASB-CSD requires a letter of support from the district's board president. There's no physical impact to nominating a director. If elected to the position, the district would be responsible for the $120 a meeting and mileage allowable per the district's reimbursement policy, and the meeting dinner fee of approximately $35 per meeting with an average of 11 meetings per year. And I know we have several of the board members do attend these meetings regularly. And so if anybody is interested in being nominated to run for that board, it would require the letter from our board president.
Interested?
No, thank you.
I might be interested in that.
The
Yeah.
peanut gallery thinks that I should throw my hat in the ring.
Well, you attend all the meetings already.
Why not do it?
I'm for it. What's one more thing to do?
Just one more thing?
Just one more thing.
I think it's only 45 minutes earlier than you arrive.
Oh, yeah, for their meeting
Yeah.
ahead of time?
But do you need to have a vote between dueling board members that would like to do this, or?
That's a good point. We can only nominate one person? Should we arm
Oh, no,
wrestle?
you can nominate more than one.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Both can request to be on it if this board accepts that.
Yeah. I don't know the bylaws of the ASB-CSD, if you can have more than one member from an agency, but, so that is a potential hiccup in the process, but otherwise I don't think it's a problem nominating two for that.
If you can only have one, I will let Rebecca have the honor.
all right, that's fine.
Sounds like it's you.
Sounds like it's me.
Okay.
Okay, so I will be reaching out to you to get a letter to support yourself for the nomination.
That doesn't sound
Mark signed
bad
it.
at
No,
all.
no.
Yeah, the vice president signed that.
Yeah, Mr. VP.
Mr. VP.
Oh, boy. All right, moving on to 6J, update on the proposed Civic Center and Phelan Park expansion projects. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you. I'm going to have George give the update on this tonight, and I would also like him to touch on where we're at with the CEQA process for the Civic Center. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Martz. I can start on CEQA if you'd like. So the CEQA was prepared for the original 5-acre project that was on the phase 1, 2, and 3, the administration building, the community building, as well as the maintenance building a few years ago. We went through the process of modifying our project to include the park. For the park, CEQA is now required for the Civic Center as well as the park as a full project. But for the Civic Center, county planning has created a mitigated negative declaration on the Civic Center. So it really is just a simple documentation for that. All the environmental, all the studies have been addressed and modified for the Civic Center, but more so they've been including on the park project. And a lot of the requirements have been addressed, are being addressed for the park project. So we're further ahead in the park in the CEQA than we were if we had started over for the park project, because it was inclusive of the Civic Center. That kind of addressed the CEQA for both the Civic Center and the park. We registered the project with SMARTS, that's the stormwater multiple planning tracking system with the state. That's the sweepy was put onto their website. So that was the erosion control plan and the set of risk determination on the project. That was done a couple weeks ago. This afternoon we had a meeting regarding the approach on the RFP for the project. So our plan is to go with a RFQ probably in February and then move ahead with an RFP in March. And that's our plan. That's a request for qualifications. We'll narrow that down on those qualified contractors. Then they would be given the full package, plans and specs for their bids. So that's kind of the plan now. We're waiting for a proposal with a consultant to kind of prepare the package, being part K2A as well as RLB, who prepared the cost estimate for the project a couple of years ago. If not a couple of years ago, but last year. Very familiar with projects of this sort and its magnitude, so they'll bring that to the board here real soon. Now, I'm just going to touch on what's been submitted and what's pending and what's been approved. The Civic Center project, that's what we'll touch on before I get into the part. The grading plan, the civil plans are going in for their fourth plan check. There's a couple items that are pending before we submit. Pretty much this fourth plan check will pretty much complete the full we'll have an approved set of plans or county approval for permitting. The construction documents for the building as well, they've been submitted in November. We're just waiting for final approval on that. Street plans, unfortunately, we've been in on our 6th plan check. Maybe they have different staff reviewing the plans. Those were submitted in December 20th. Again, minor corrections. That should also be approved here real soon. Landscape plan as well, waiting for final approval on that. WQMP, waiting for their approval on that. That was submitted back in September. The Edison service upgrade, and that's kind of where we're finalizing with the Edison designer, the engineer, for the upgrade to the existing system that we have now. That we're in the final stages of that. Preliminary drainage study has been approved by the county. The vector control clearance has been cleared and approved. Electrical like standards plan check has been in since December 20th. we talk about the ITP, the incidental take permit for the Joshua trees. Part of that doesn't really affect the Civic Center project. It's more the park. None of the trees will be disturbed for the Civic Center project. A lot of the grading, a lot of the dirt will be taken from that 14-acre project to address the grading needs for the Civic Center. Any questions on the Civic Center? Because I'm going to jump into the park.
I have a quick question just on the date, what we would expect for CEQA to be advertised for the comment period.
That, the comment, again, this is not a full document. We haven't gotten to the point where we've been handed the mitigated negative deck. So we're still in that process of approval. So we should have that probably next month before we get into any approved plans. So the county will not move forward with that in place. So we should have that coming to the board here soon as well.
Do you foresee any problems with the mitigation measures so far?
No, as much as the county has managed the CEQA for the park, and none of that really impacted the Civic Center. Really, it was the grading and the Joshua trees. But we're going to move forward with, the plan is, because the state hasn't made a decision on their Joshua tree as an endangered species, we're still holding with the county's requirements on their mitigation for Joshua trees. So nothing really has changed. It might have helped a lot to just have the Civic Center building and then everything else addressed on the park side. So,
thank you.
Park project. I'm going to go down the line, and a lot of it pertains to the Civic Center as well. The traffic has been approved by the county. The perk has been approved, the percolation report. The geotechnical also approved, which is part of the Civic Center. The biological assessment has been completed. The Joshua tree study, as I just mentioned, has been submitted to the state. That fee was paid a few weeks ago. The board approved for the review fee. The cultural and the report's been completed. The infiltrations can be completed. The hydrology study for the site has been on file for the 5-acre as well as for the park site. The preliminary grading plans, street improvement plans, that's all tied together. That includes the north access to the park. And we're still kind of waiting on the draft CEQA from Liburn, and that should be ready in early 2023. We are working on the site design for the park to submit to the county planning commission for their approval. That should be a quick process. One other thing, we just did a lot merger of those two properties on the 14-acre. There's an 8 and a 8.5 and a 5.5 that were combined. What was needed for the Civic Center project. There's a lot of overlapping, moving parts to this. It's hard to manage. So I think of something, if I pop up, just don't mind me. It just came to mind. So the thing, we're vacating Sahara Road. We're working through that process. I know I'm probably giving you a lot more than what you want to hear, but I think for me, it's more information is better than very little. So, with park, if there are any questions that you have, I'll
you mentioned the perk test. Is that for on-site drainage for like a percolation pond, or
Yes.
is it for the sewer?
It's sewer septic. There are different phases of the perk on the site retention of stormwater for the Civic Center, and it's addressed differently when we get into the park design. So that's going to look much different than it will look now, even though that'll be temporary. Temporary could be 2 years, could be 10 years, but it's temporary, but it has been approved. And actually, it takes in water really well, more than what we thought it would have been. So it was good news for us to see that we didn't have to take, this is the problem, we didn't have to take as much dirt out for the perk, for the pond. The size kind of was reduced. But that meant, where do we get the dirt, you know, to kind of help build the park? So the engineer did a lot of work to kind of massage both projects, the Civic Center and the park, and the phasing of the park to make it work.
So you balanced the whole site pretty much?
We're looking about 38,000 cubic yards of dirt for the Civic Center. You know, we are looking at 20% shrinkage for the project. So net, 20% of that, probably 30,000 cubic yards. So yeah, I think I covered it. If you have any other questions.
Thank you.
No, very well.
Thank you. Just smiling.
You good?
Questions, comments? No? All right. That was very thorough. Thank you.
Click this on. You know, with Mr. Hayes and yourself and Snyder, I thought being thorough. The last one was just prior to the holidays. I thought it was better to bring this up. Though county is pretty quiet during the holidays, not much has changed, but there has been some movement.
And I want to say thank you for spending all the time with me today earlier going over the project. Same to you, Don and Lori. It was great. I'm way behind, so it was good to get in there and catch up and see what had happened and where you guys were at. I know it takes a lot of work to get a project off the ground, probably more work than the construction phase. It looks like everything's going really smooth. Thank
What did
you.
you think of the project?
I like the project, yeah. Looked excellent.
The parks?
I didn't pay a lot of attention to the park because we're looking at the Civic Center and the grading of the first phase and what was going on. So,
Just wondering how you liked, whether you liked the layout.
Neither of you guys have your mics on.
Oh. Now it's on.
It's all right. All right, awesome. Okay, so we will move on to item number 7, committee reports. Start with engineering.
Nothing to report. Nothing to report. I believe we meet next Wednesday.
All right.
That will be on the same, so we'll have engineering then board if we switch the days.
Yes, or we can move that.
We won't switch them that quick. It requires board action to,
No,
Yeah,
I'm
in the
saying for
future.
next week, I mean,
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
committee meetings will probably have to be changed then.
yeah, probably just that one.
All right. Finance?
We have not met, but there is a schedule in the scheduling of the, in the packet that there's a couple of meetings coming up.
All right. Legislative? The old legislative.
no,
I know, haven't met yet. Park and Rec, nothing new, and waste and recycling?
No, other than, we will be rescheduling the Waste and Recycling Committee meeting, because that does conflict with the chamber event, just for this month. And then, now that the budget schedule's approved, there will be some additional meetings, special meetings scheduled for parks, and finance, regarding the budget.
Okay, thank you. All right, so number 8, staff and general managers report. Mr. Bartz?
yes, thank you. Just kind of following up on what George said, we're going to make every effort that we can to update the new board members and existing board members in the projects that we have going. Some of these projects have been going on for years, and they're, repetitive for us, but when you're hearing them for the first time, there's a lot of information that you'll need. So we will try to pick some of those off and give some special attention, even a workshop if we need to even talk about specifically the civic complex in the park and what that looks like. It's a pretty big project, and it's taken years to get where we're at right now. Also, Kim will be sending out information to all of the board members about conferences and workshops that are coming up that you might be interested in. So she can also talk to you about the process for doing that, and also the scheduling for that, what your preferences are. I just want to pass this over to Sean for a minute to give him his moment of glory of talking about well 15, that we're well underway with that, and it looks like it's going to be a successful well. Sean?
Thank you, Don. So we are happy to report we did hit our scope of work depth. We're at 1,020. We've sampled zone 1 and 2. Those are our deeper zones. We set a sampling tool. Basically, they're depth samples from specific zones. It is a wet well. We did hit water, but 400 feet or so. Late tomorrow afternoon, we hopefully will sample zone 3, and then we'll move into more of the design and construction of the well. So fingers crossed, everything's so far looking really good.
Nice.
Happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Yes, and if any of the board members want to have tours, some of the different projects out in El Mirage, it seems like that seems to be the general area of where we have the projects happening right now. We'd be happy, or staff will be happy to take you out and show you around on some of these projects. I know you've been out before, but things have changed over the last couple of years substantially.
Awesome, thank you. Good. All right, so we will move to reports, directors' reports. Kathy, anything?
Nothing new.
All right, Mark?
Yes. Yeah, I did attend Aqua, it was Aqua. That was back in December. And I'll have a report for the next meeting in the packet.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Chuck?
Nothing to report?
Greg?
I have nothing to report, and Happy New Year to everybody.
All right, thank you. And I have nothing new to report. So we'll move on to 10 correspondence. Ms. Sevi?
Yes, we have our billing schedule. Can you believe it is 2023? So we have January, February, March in there. And then it's been very cold, so we're reminding our customers that your pipes can freeze and to be prepared for a water emergency. Also updating our records so we can get in touch with people if we notice a water emergency. And then our first public workshop regarding SB 1383 is coming up in January. And so we had a flyer that went out in the bills. It has QR codes that link to our website. And then additionally, a separate postcard mailer went out to all inhabited parcels in the district.
Excellent. All right.
I should say is going out next week. So look in your mailbox.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so number 11, review of action items. Were there any prior meeting action items?
There were none.
All right, were there any current meeting action items?
Other than we're going to be bringing back a draft of the sunshine ordinance as well as scheduling some special meetings.
All right.
We'd also like to kind of check with the board schedule for the item that we pulled off the agenda tonight. From what I understand, there's potential rate increase that will go into effect January 15th. And if Mr. Kennedy has adequate time to comfortably review the documents that were submitted to him, if we had a special meeting to address just that item, possibly on Monday, the January 9th, if the board is available.
Good? We're good?
We'll see if we can get the information together.
All right, thank you. All right, so then number 12, set agenda for next meeting, January 18th. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to that agenda? No? We're good? All right, so with no further business, we were adjourned at 7:03 PM.